Mr Deputy President. Yes, look, I wanted to take note in response to the answer provided by the Minister representing the Attorney-General in relation to the government's abandonment of their commitment to reform anti-discrimination laws, which was announced officially today. The government has, of course, suggested that this is merely a deferral of their commitment, but the reality is, as we know, that if the foreshadowed reform of these anti-discrimination laws was not to be introduced this week so that it can be debated in the next session, then effectively it's off for all comers, because we know that unless that was going to occur before the election, who knows what will happen after that. Unfortunately, with this abandonment, the government is in fact betraying the hopes and the faith of many Australians who've been waiting for a very long time to see simpler, fairer equality laws. Significant numbers of people have been working in relation to this matter for many years. There's been extensive consultation. There have been reports in relation to the law reform, and of course we've also seen a comprehensive and thorough inquiry process recently by the Senate Legal and Constitutional Affairs Legislation Committee, of which I am a member. So I had the benefit of actually hearing the numerous submissions made by Australians across the country who have been very, very keen to see fairer, simpler equality laws brought in consistent with the government's pre-election commitment. We know that what will happen with this walking away from this election commitment is that there will be many people who will now be unprotected who were going to have protections enhanced. Victims of family and domestic violence, for instance, who currently can be discriminated against without sanction, for instance in the real estate market, where they can be denied accommodation by real estate agents if the agents are concerned that a person applying for accommodation may be subject to domestic violence. They have no recourse at the moment. People with family responsibilities, carers and parents, can be discriminated against in most situations without any recourse. And these were reforms that were foreshadowed in the draft exposure bill. They were recommendations of the committee inquiring into the bill that will now be abandoned. We also know that there are many people in Australia who can still be discriminated against by religious organisations, religious bodies and schools, and those people were not going to necessarily be protected by the changes to the law reform, although that's what the Greens certainly were calling for. But we do know that the exposure draft of the bill did suggest that at the very least, people who were needing aged care could be protected from the existing religious exceptions in current anti-discrimination law. The government had put that in the exposure draft. The committee had certainly recommended that that be upheld, but in fact, of course, that is now going to not occur. We do know that the government has indicated that they will take some small reform steps, small but important, limited but important, in relation to the Sex Discrimination Act, to include sexual orientation, gender identity and intersex status, and we very much welcome those. They are long overdue, but unfortunately, being so restricted, there are still many Australians who will be left short. The other aspect that we do need to be aware of, even in relation to that law reform, is that the religious exceptions will remain and indeed will extend to people who have those protected attributes as well. So where religious bodies and organisations are allowed to lawfully discriminate currently on the basis of protected attributes, they will continue to be allowed to discriminate on the basis of sexual orientation, gender identity and intersex status. And of course, they are a significant body of the Australians who are discriminated against by those powerful institutions in society, and today the news does not offer them any hope that that will change, because the religious exceptions will remain on foot. The Attorney-General has used timing and complexity as an issue, but we question why is it that the government left this election commitment to the last minute. Labor has clearly lost the political will to protect human rights. This is a great shame. It's a shame that Labor apparently does not have the courage of their convictions to see these reforms through, to take on the debate, to make the case and to make sure that Australians are adequately protected, as they had undertaken to do before the election.